What's going on, guys? Welcome back. In this video, I'm gonna teach you how to build a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. So we will take one of my existing projects and we will create a pipeline for it. So before we start, if you're new to my channel, just go ahead, hit the subscribe button and join us on YouTube. Also, take 1 second and hit the thumbs up button so you will help this video reach more and more people. And also, as always, we need to satisfy the YouTube algorithm. So hitting the like button is something good that might help me and help the video go to more people, and also it will help us grow the channel. So with no further ado, let's start implementing. But wait. Before we start, don't forget to join me on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook. You can also join our Discord server. You can join me almost everywhere. So yeah, if you want to get updates from me and if you want to follow the status and the tips that I'm publishing almost every day, just go ahead and follow me. You will have all the links in the description below. And with no further ado, now we will start. Okay. The pipeline that we will be building is as follows. So we will be building this workflow right here. So when a user or a developer pushes some code to GitHub, automatically this will trigger the pipeline, or it will trigger the GitHub Actions workflow. So also GitHub Actions will go and read the secrets from the secret store, and then we will be running several steps in order to build and publish our application. So here, let's have a look quickly on this job right here. So the job is build and publish, and first of all we need to check out the code. I will explain every step later on. So first of all, we need to check out the code, and then we need to run the Maven test, or like we need to run the unit tests of our applications. If you have other tests like end-to-end test and so on and so forth, you can also add some steps right here. And then after everything is running up, everything is tested in green, so the next step is building and packaging the application. So this means we will generate a runnable application, and then we will build a Docker image out of it. And after that, we will need to log into Docker Hub, and finally we will be building and publishing the image to a Docker Hub, and then you will be able to use this image from there, and you can deploy the application to AWS, to Azure, or even if you have your own infrastructure. All right, so this is an overall of what we will be building in this video. But before that, let me explain some terms for you and let me make it clear as always, so in order to understand things much better. All right. So what is a CI/CD pipeline? Based on the definition, a CI/CD pipeline is a continuous integration and continuous deployment, or also called continuous delivery, process that automates the building, testing, and deployment of a software application, or of application generally speaking. So the term continuous integration is or refers to the process of regular merging small code changes into a shared repository. So testing them and then verifying that they can be integrated with the larger code base. So this ensures that any code changes do not break the existing code base and help maintaining code quality. This means what? For example, you as a developer, you are working on a small feature, and in this feature you added new classes, you updated some existing code, and so on and so forth, and then you need to push your code. So your code will be on the shared code base, for example GitHub or GitLab, and so on and so forth. And when you push the code, your code should be tested, should be verified that this code will not change the code base of the whole application, or will not cause any regressions or any issues. So this is the continuous integration. This means that your code, or the small piece of code or small part of code that you as a developer created, should be correctly and safely integrated into the base or the code base of the whole application. Also, now let's define what is continuous deployment or continuous delivery. So this refers to the process of automating the release of software applications into production. So following successful testing, and then this process includes creating builds, running automated tests, deploying the application to staging environments, and finally releasing the application to the production environment. So the CD, or the continuous deployment, means that we need to run again the tests, we need to check everything, build the application, package the application, and then deploy it to one or several environments. And then, so a CI/CD together, what is? So a CI/CD pipeline combines these two processes, providing an end-to-end automated workflow from code changes to production deployment. So the pipeline includes multiple stages, such as source control, building, testing, staging, and then production. So, and then automates each stage to reduce the possibility of a human error. So this is really important, and this is the most important part of the CI/CD pipelines, is to avoid and reduce the possibility of a human error and ensure consistent quality and reliability of the software. So by implementing a CI/CD pipeline, developers can quickly and reliably build, test, and release code changes, and enabling them to deliver new features and bug fixes to end users at a faster pace with higher confidence. So having a pipeline in your project is something nowadays mandatory and something really important, and also having such skills will help you get really high paid jobs. So follow me and let me show you how you can build the CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. For demonstrating the GitHub Actions and building the CI/CD pipeline, we will be using this public repository that I have right here, which is called Springboot for Beginners. So here there is a typo, I think I need to fix it, but yeah, we will be using this one. So don't forget to start this repository, and also you can follow me on GitHub, so you will get all the updates and all the notifications if I publish some new code. All right, so now let's open this within our IntelliJ, and I will walk you through the creation of a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub Actions. So from the official documentation of GitHub Actions, what we need to do, or what we need to have in order to have a CI/CD pipeline or GitHub Actions. So the first thing, we need to have a folder here, like under the root folder of your application, called Actions, and the folder should be like this, .actions, and then hit enter. And inside the .actions folder, we need to have another folder called workflows. So here, if you create or if you add any YAML file that have the structure and the configuration of a GitHub Actions, GitHub will be able to automatically read this folder called .actions, and it will be able also to read all the workflows that we have inside this GitHub Actions. So the naming here is really important, so don't make typos. All right, now I will create a new file and I will call it main.yaml. Okay, so this main.yaml will represent my GitHub Actions, or the pipeline, or the definition of my pipeline for this project. All right, let me make this full screen, and now let's go through all the details of this main.yaml file in order to be able to push and build your application and deploy finally a Docker image to the Docker Hub. So first of all, we need to have a name for this workflow. So here we have a name, and I will call it build and deploy Spring app, for example. And then we need to specify when to trigger these actions. So here we have something called on, and here I want to show you something. Here you see down in the bottom right corner right here, you have no JSON schema, And if you click on it and filter actions, you will find that you have GitHub Actions right here, and this will help you with the auto completion of this file. So now if I search for GitHub workflow, it's not GitHub Actions, but you need to search for GitHub workflow, and then you will have the auto completion for this type of files. All right, so here I want to have on, and then I want to define when to trigger this pipeline. So I want to trigger it on push, and push here I can specify the branches. And the branches means what? So for example, if you have a main branch and you have a dev branch and so on and so forth, so you can specify on which branch or on which branches, because we can, as you can see here, this is a list of branches. So now we can define on which branches we want to run these actions. So for us, it's gonna be the main branch. And then when we talk about pipelines, we have jobs, and each job has different or several steps. So one job, you can consider it as a whole process running on a separate machine. All right. So for this case, as we saw in the diagram before, we will have one job, or like one main job that will contain different steps for testing, building, and deploying the application. So here, let's define our jobs. So to define the jobs, all you need to do is type jobs, and then first of all is the first job, or like the main job. So let's call it build deploy. So this one, the line 9, is the name that you want to give to your job. So build deploy, now we can give it a name. So let's call it build and deploy springboot for beginners. All right. And then you need to define a runner. So the runner is the machine that where you want, or on which you want to run these actions. So here we have a property called runs on, and here you will have a list of runners that are predefined by GitHub. So here, for example, you can run it on Ubuntu, on macOS, and also you have Ubuntu, you have Windows, and also if you want, you can create your own self-hosted runner. So you can create your own machine, whether it's your local machine, or for example, you can create an EC2 instance, or on AWS, or you can have any kind of server that you want to run your actions on. But for this demo, or for this showcase, we will be using the Ubuntu latest from GitHub Actions. So then we said that each job has different steps. So I think you get the answer. Now we need to define a few steps, and the first one, let's give it a name. So the step 1 will be checking out the code. Check out, this means what? This means that GitHub Actions will go and copy the code from GitHub, or from your repository, and clone it into the runner. So here, as we mentioned, a job will be running on a separate runner. So we will need to check out the code and put it into this runner in order to perform all the actions, all the steps that we need to run for this action. So here, let's call it checkout code. And then what we need to do is to use something that will allow us and help us to check out the code. So here we have a property called uses, and this uses means that we want to run some actions. A step is an action itself, so we want to perform an action, and this action is checking out the code. So here for the checkout, we have one action called actions/checkout at v2. So you might ask the question, where did I get this from? So how do I know that we have one action called checkout v2 and even the other actions that we will be using later on? You might ask the question where to find these actions. And the answer is here. From GitHub, if you go back to the GitHub website and you see here that you have marketplace. If you click this link, let's open it in a new tab. Here you will see that we have several things and we have apps, actions, API management, and so on and so forth. So let's select actions just to filter. And here, if you just type checkout and hit enter, you will see that you have several actions that you can use. For example, this checkout is by actions, and as you can see here, you have this verified icon. So this means that this is the official action for checking out a code from GitHub. So if I click on it, you will see in the documentation how to use this. So in order to use this action, simply you need this uses action. So okay, now we have the v3, so I will update my code, and then you have all the documentation necessary in order to check out your code and perform any other actions. So all you need to do is go back to the actions right here and then search for the action that you want. And also you will learn a few actions from this tutorial, and now you will be able to search for it and read the documentation more and more and get to know how it works in details. So first thing, let's update this one to v3. And then after checking out the code, what do we need? We need to set up the JDK 17 because the Spring Boot for beginners application is running using Java 17. So we need to install Java 17 on our runner. So the steps that we are doing right here is it's somehow like running these commands manually on your own machine. So in order to perform some few things, you need first of all to check out the code. So you need to install Git and do git clone and so on and so forth. And then you need to install JDK, and then you need to run all the commands, all the Maven commands to test, build, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly what we will be doing, but we will delegate all this stuff to GitHub Actions. Now we have another step. Let's call it setup JDK 17. So for setting up JDK 17, again, we will be using an action called actions/setup Java, and then v3. So we have version 3, and for this we need to pass few information. This means like to pass information, or like we can consider them as parameters. So here I want to Java, or like to use setup Java v3, and now I want to specify the Java version and the distribution. So here I have distribution. So the distribution is I will be using Corretto. And then the Java version, I want to use Java 17. So here I want to use Java 17 to build and run my application. All right, so now after setting up and installing JDK 17, now we need to run the first step, which is testing. So we need to run the tests. So now let's call it unit tests. For this unit test, we will not be using an action. So because we need to run a manual script, which is mvn-b, or like maven test, or maven clean install, or like maven clean test, and so on and so forth. So we need to run something. So we have the command, or we have the property run. With this run, we need to pass a command. Okay, so the command is mvn-b, and then the target, or like the operation that we want to perform, which is test, and then we can specify the file, which is pom.xml, and the pom.xml is referring to this pom.xml right here, because after checking out the code, we will have the same code available also on this runner. So when I mention here file pom.xml, don't get surprised and you will not say, okay, where this coming from? So now you know where this is coming from. Okay, so after running the tests and after running all the steps before building, if you have several steps of testing or several phases of testing, you need to run all of them, and then we need to package and build. Okay, so let's give it a name, build the application, for example. and then we need also to run another command. So here in this example right here, we saw if in case we have one command, all we need to do is to pass it as a parameter. So now what if we have, or what if we want to run multiple commands in order to realize some operation? So the answer is use this pipe right here and then go back to a new line. And for example, I want to do mvn clean. So I want to clean my target package, or like my packaging. But this is honestly, this is not necessary, but we can do it because I just want to show you how to perform, or how you can write multiple commands when you want to run some step. All right, so we have mvn clean, and then I want to do mvn -b, and then I want to package. So because we want to package and build our application, and then we need to specify again the file, which is also the pom.xml file. So here we defined the first step, which is checking out the code and then setting up the JDK. And after that, running unit tests and then building the application. Now what we need to do is pushing to Docker. All right. So we need to build the Docker image, and then we need to log into Docker Hub and finally push the image to Docker Hub. Before going deeper into the implementation of this workflow, let's first push this code to our repository, and let's check the actions, or let's check the execution of this build and deploy job. So all I need to do here, open this one and then just push the code. So I will commit, and now I will say, I will call it first build, or like building application, and then commit and push. And now all we need to do is to go to GitHub. We need to go here to our browser and click on repositories. Like, you need to go to the repository, and all we need to do is click on actions here, and just we need to watch. Okay, so these are the old pipelines that I have, or like the old stuff that I have within this repository. But now let's go back to IntelliJ and let's push this code. So after pushing, so now we can go back here, and you will see that we will have something popping up right now. So we can see here that we have the pipeline running, and this is because if we go back here we said it's .actions, but it should be .github. So I will rename it. So it should be .github folder. All right, now I will push the changes again. So building application, attempt 2 or part 2, just to make it clear. And now we will push, and let's go back again to our GitHub Actions. All right, so here we will have something popping up, or like a new flow running or getting running. So here we see that the pipeline is running, and if I open it right here, we will see that we have build and deploy springboot, which is the job name that we defined in our configuration. And here we see that the first one is setting up the job. And 1 second, I will show you each step what it's doing. So here we have a green pipeline, so all the job completed successfully. And as you can see here, we have this green check. So the first thing is setting up the JDK, and as you can see, running this action, creating settings.xml, and so on and so forth, and also writing home runner.m2 settings.xml. So it's just making some configurations, and then we have running the tests. So first of all, we have this mvn -b and then test. So this operation, or this command, it will be first of all updating and downloading all the artifacts, and then it will run the test. So with this project, we don't have any tests, but in case you add only one single test, it will be running right here. So after running the tests, then what we have, so we have build the application. So building the application, it will do the same. except finally it will say that we have building success and we are building the jar file. So we make sure that our application has no test failures and we are able to successfully build the application. All right, and then we have some post checkout code and then completing the job and post setup JDK 17. So now let's go back and try to finish the part with the Docker Hub. After making sure that checking out, building the application, running the test is successfully running, now we need to create a Docker image out of our application. So we will have a container containing our jar file application, and then we will build an image and we'll deploy it or publish it on Docker Hub. So we need a new step. So here I will create a new step, give it a name, build Docker image. So this build Docker image, it will use some actions. So we have here actions, and then we have one action called build push action and then v2, and this build push action will try to build a Docker image out of a Docker file that we need to specify. So here we need to pass a few parameters, and as we mentioned before, for parameters we say with, and here we have context. So the context is dot, means that we want to use the current file or the current path of the Docker, which is the Docker file which is on the base path of the application or of the source application. And then we can also specify the Docker file, which is called Dockerfile. And then we have also one option called push. We will set it to false because in this step we just want to check if we are able to build the image or not. So we want to check if we can build the image. If possible, we will push it later on. And then we need to add some tags. Now for the tags, we will need the username or like the Docker Hub username slash one tag. For example, we will call it springboot for beginners, and we can give it a date as a tag. And now, since we said that we need the Docker username or the Docker Hub username, this is sensitive information that we should not expose in public because we will be pushing our code later on GitHub. So this step requires us to create some secrets on GitHub Actions. So let me show you how to create secrets, and then we can go back and finish this step. In order to add a new secret to your application or to your repository, all you need to do, just go to your repository first and then settings. And then if you go down here on the security part, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. So here on security, you have secrets and variables. And when you open it, you will see that you have action, code space, and dependabot. So let's click on actions right here, and you see that you have two types, whether secrets or variables. So you can create secrets that you can read from your GitHub Actions or from your GitHub Actions workflows, or you can create also variables that you can also read from your GitHub Actions workflows. So here in my case, I already created a Docker Hub access token and a Docker Hub username. So for the username, I can also even show you mine. It's okay. So let me zoom in. So your username is the name that which is right here. So all you need to do is whether type it or copy it in here. So call it your Docker Hub, Docker_Hub_ username. And later on, I will show you how to create this token. So in this case, like in this way, when you click on new repository and for example, test secret right here, and here you just type anything you want. So some secret, and then you click on add secret, you will see that you have a new secret here. So you can edit it, you can also delete it. And this secret, so don't worry, this secret is only readable by you. So you need to be connected to GitHub. So this is so important. If you're not connected, you will not be able to access this part right here. So it's only you or your team who are able to create and read secrets from your repository. All right, so now we have the secret. Let me walk you through how to generate a Docker Hub access token, which we will need later on also to publish the image or the Docker image to our Docker Hub. So now let's create a Docker Hub access token. Now click on your profile right here and then account settings. And after that, go to security, and you will see here that you have a list of access tokens. So this is the token that I generated, or like the one I'm using for my projects. And then click on new access token. And for that, so the description, so let's call it demo GitHub, just for the moment. And then you can define the permissions. What are the permissions for this access token? And then you need to click generate, and here the access token that you will be using. So for you, in case you want to use this one, just don't, because I will be removing it just after this video. So generate your own access token and also publish to your own Docker Hub. All right, so here all we need to do is to copy this one, and then you go back to the actions secret, new repository secret, and then call it docker_hub_access_token, and just paste the token that we just copied. All right, so like this, we have almost everything. We can now go back and finish our workflow. Now we can go back and finish our workflow right here. So here we mentioned that we stopped at the point that we wanted to add a tag or tags to our Docker build or our Docker image. So also we mentioned that we need to have a Dockerfile, because here this, or like building and pushing action, will be based on the Dockerfile file that we should have within our project, and I will walk you in a moment how this file looks like. All right, so the tags right here, we need to read the secrets. So to read the secrets, it's $ and then the double mustache, and then secrets dot, and then the secret name that you created in your GitHub Actions secrets. So here, let's use Docker_username. So this is the tag, and then /spring-boot- for beginners, and then here you need to specify to mention the version. For example, you want to call it latest. This means it will be the latest version always, but we want this tag to be dynamic. That means each time I publish a new version or I change the code, I want to build a new image with a specific tag so I can correctly use it when I want to deploy. And in order to do that, what we can do right here, we can give it, for example, some date. All right. So let me show you how we can add a date using GitHub Actions. So to add a date, you need to use $ and then parentheses, and then date plus, and then we need to pass the format. All right. And then we want the year, and then month, and all of them, it's like %year, and then %month in a small m, and then dash also %d for the date. And we can also add the hour, %h, a big H, and then dash, another dash just for the tag, or you can also just remove these dashes right here, so you will have it fully. So we will test it later on, and we will see, or we will decide which one to use. And then %m, and finally %s. So this is how you can get the current date from GitHub Actions. All right, so now we have our build Docker step ready to use. Now the next step is connecting to Docker and then publishing the Docker file. But before that, I said that I will explain and I will show you this Docker file, which you can find in the source code of this repository. So within the project right here, I have a file called Dockerfile. So this contains the definition or the blueprint of my application, or of the Docker file of the application that I want to build. So here you see that we are pulling from the OpenJDK image, and then we define the working directory. And after that, we copy the target/spring demo100.jar to the app springdemo.jar. So here, let me explain what's going on with this copy. So after running all the steps right here and coming to this build the application, to this step right here, where we execute mvn-b package and then the file. So this inside the runner will create something like this target right here, and then we will have a file, or we will have a jar file called springdemo-100.jar, or like the version we have here. So then we will be copying from this target, and we will be copying this file to this destination right here. So this is what this command stands for. And then we want to expose some port. So our application is running on port 8080. You can expose a different one if you have a different port, of course. And then we want to run the jar file inside the Docker. So here we need to pass some commands, so which is cmd, this for commands, java -jar, and then springdemo.jar. So this is the classic command to run a jar file. So this is how the Docker file look like. So also don't worry, because soon enough I will be releasing a video about Docker. So you will be understanding Docker in deep, and you will be no longer confused about this Docker file if you are confused. All right. So now let's go back and finish our workflow. So after building the Docker image, in order to push the Docker image to Docker Hub, we need first to connect to, or to log in to Docker Hub. So in order to do that, we will create a new step. We will call it login to Docker Hub. And then we will use also some action. And the action is called docker/login-action. And then v1. All right, and then we need to pass few parameters with, now you know the commands. So we have a username. So this is like an input. And then we need to read the user, or the GitHub username, or the GitHub Docker user, not the GitHub, but the Docker Hub username. Sorry for that, like GitHub is confusing me. So we need to pass the Docker Hub username and also the Docker Hub password. All right. So here mentioning Docker Hub, I forgot that this one should be Docker_hub. And then we need also to pass the password, and the same thing, it will be, let me fix this typo, and the same thing, it will be Docker Hub access token, the one that we just generated before that. So right now we are able, after building the Docker image, we log into Docker Hub, and finally what we need to do is to push the image, or the built image, to Docker Hub. So I will add a new step, and here push to Docker Hub. So also uses the same as here, action build push action, because this action right here will allow us build and push a Docker file. So it will be almost the same thing right here. I will copy this information and I will paste it here. So we have the context is always dot and the Docker file, and then I want to push true. And then to push is Docker Hub, or like that we need the tag, so it should be the same tag, and that's it. So all we need to do is to use the same action as we used for building Docker image, and then changing the push from false to true. This will allow us, or will help us pushing to Docker Hub. So we are almost done. Let's now go ahead, push this code and check the pipeline. So building application, now pushing to Docker Hub. Commit and push, and then push. So now let's go to GitHub and then let's monitor the changes. So here I will click back on actions, and then the build will show up. So here the pipeline was failing. Let's go ahead and check why. So let's click on it, and here setting up the job, let's check what's going on or what was wrong. All right, so it seems, okay, so this action right here is not from Actions, but it's from GitHub. So let's go back to our IntelliJ and let's fix this small typo. So this one is from Docker, and the same for build Docker. So this action is also from Docker right here. And now we will be able to push again. So let's push 2, and then commit and push, and then push. Now let's go back and check our actions. So now we have the pipeline running. So let's go ahead and check what's going on inside. So we will click on this one right here, build and deploy. So, and we will be monitoring what's going on exactly. So here setting JDK is done. I can just collapse this one, running the unit tests, and then we will build the application, and then building, oops, I can close this one, and then building the Docker, log into Docker Hub, and then push to Docker Hub. And when it's pushed to Docker Hub, okay, so something is wrong. Let's check what we missed here. Okay, so here it says that invalid reference format. So let's try to change this, because I also had a few doubts about this. So for the date, I will just remove these dashes, and then I will copy paste this, because I think this one is not acceptable as a tag. Now let's push again and check. And here phase 3 or attempt number 3, git commit and then git push. We go back now and let's monitor the new run. So now it's running again, so we can monitor the steps. So now it's just setting up the job, and then it will run the jobs that we saw before. So the checkout, as you can see, it's super fast. It takes only 2 seconds, and same almost for the others. So GitHub Actions is quite fast when you want, or if you want to use it as a CI/CD pipeline. It's quite fast and it's really recommended. So now building the application. And of course, like for the step for the unit testing and building the application, it always depends. It always depends on you, or depends on the application that you have, not really you. All right, so now let's just change this. So just to not spend a lot of time with this, so this one I will give it a tag, for example, latest, as always, and then we will see what will happen. All right, so let's keep it latest, and now I will push again one last time, and then let's check how this is gonna look like on the pipeline. So all right, last push, and then let's go and check the output. All right, go back to here, and now we should see the job running, and also we can monitor it from here as always. So running unit tests, and then we will wait for all the steps, building application, and then we will be building the Docker image and log into the Docker Hub, and finally push the image. So building Docker image, now it seems, or it looks much better. All right, nice. Now we are logged to Docker Hub, and the final step is pushing to Docker Hub. So our pipeline is green. Now if I go to Docker Hub, I can close this one. And if I go back here, you will see that we have the image with the tag latest, which is built a few seconds ago. So also if I go back, like I can do, for example, if I give it this tag today, all right, and I push the code again, you will see that we will have another image with a different tag. So, all right. Meanwhile, let me talk to you a little bit. So now what comes next? So all you need to do, then you can just pull this image right here, execute it or run it, and then you will have the API up and running. So you no longer need to run it on your local machine, or you no longer need to run it to run the application using IntelliJ or your IDE. All you need to do is just create a GitHub action workflow, push to GitHub, and then generate your image, and then you can distribute or you can share this image or this API with anyone that you want to share it with. Alright, so I want just to go back and check the new image right here, or the new build. So let's wait until it's green. Alright, so now I will refresh. So you see that you have this Spring Boot for beginners, and if you check the tags, you will see that this is this one is the latest, the one we just pushed before, and this one is the one we just pushed right now. So we have one image and we have different tags, or we have one repository and we have different tags. So you can just go ahead, share this image with your friends so they can execute and test your API. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a few things from this video. So these are the basics of GitHub Actions. So we created only one job that contains several steps. Also, we can make this pipeline a bit more advanced by creating different jobs which are dependent to each other, or like we can even have some jobs running in parallel. Also, we can upload the artifacts to the GitHub Actions Artifactory, pull it from there. We can see how we can share files and data between the different jobs, because as I mentioned, running a jobs means that the job will be run on a different machine or a different runner or an independent runner. So we need to have a mechanism to share data between the different jobs. If you like this video, just go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Also leave me in the comments if you are interested in something or in more advanced GitHub action video. So if yes, or if I find most of you interested in this, I can also plan and create such video for you. Before we go, if you're new to my channel, go ahead, subscribe and hit the thumbs up button so we can make this video reach more and more people, and also, as always, to satisfy the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much and see you next time.